All right, we switched locations. I had to charge my phone, but so church. My grandmother they wanted me to believe in all of that, and I do remember being a little kid and going through the Bible, and I I was a kid and I drew on the Bible, drew on the walls. Like I said, I've done pretty much everything you could almost imagine, except for some really big things. And when I was at church, I I knew I was a sinner. I knew I was out of place. I didn't felt accepted. My interpretation of how church would be was distorted. Was definitely different. I felt like what why would they accept me, or why would God or why would Jesus accept me, knowing what I was as a child. So I was very much anti, like, conformity to some extent. I felt like I kind of had an understanding internally within me, like, you know, not all people that contribute or act, churchly are truly churchly. There's all different types of, people that do a lot of bad things that most people don't know or will never know, in some cases. But then there are really good people, and there are people that want the best for you. And I was like, how could I trust anybody? Or the people that were closest to me, I couldn't trust even. But I knew that, like, that was all I had. And so I felt forsaken for sure. I felt like I was, thrown into the pit of hell. And that was my reality. That was everything that I was dealing with. And that continued, and it seemed to kind of disappear now that I'm out in a different area. But because there's no positive influence, there's no one to really kind of guide me or keep me in a direction, because I'm still living with someone who also had mistreated me, but pretty much it's like my only option to get away. So life did seem to get better, but I still continued to do bad habits. Stealing is not good, lying is not good. But even the people that I thought were my friends, in fact, because I was so naive, I would even say to them, like, I didn't have a key to my house, and sometimes we'd leave the door unlocked, because we didn't have to worry about a lot of things. But I went to school and I came back home, and pretty much all my stuff was stolen. The people that were closest to me, I distinctly remember that, they were brothers. They were gonna, they were moving, and the day that they moved is basically the day that they went to my house. And whatever games I had, whatever we did, together, at the Kmart, basically all that stuff was gone. So I had Mega Man, I had, you know, Marvel, I had, just games for PlayStation. Um, and I never had really a console up until that point. I mean, we had a little bit of Nintendo, and Atari. Atari I didn't play much. Definitely Nintendo. We play on the black box. But I'd be watching, like, scramble porn, or MTV or cartoons, as I've mentioned and alluded to in prior videos. So being indoctrinated into, like, Disney, and if everybody who's an adult knows what Disney's all about, it's basically, preparation for grooming children. It's not, it's not a lie. It is what it is, right? Doesn't mean that you can't still like Mickey Mouse. Like, I like Mickey Mouse. I don't like what that dark interpretation is of it. I thought Mickey Mouse was cool. He's distinct and he's different. He's the star. He's the one of the main people, right? But when you use some of those things to, hurt others in a different way, or to project or do those things, it it is considered grooming. So different beliefs were put on me. Now, about the church, though, because of that, like, I I couldn't trust the people that were there, because I didn't know what their true intentions were. And because I wasn't heavily focused into reading the Bible because I was just doing a lot of sacrilege stuff because my parents they didn't want me to learn, or they didn't want me to do the things that I was doing. And because of that, I would get into everything, literally everything, videos, books. My grandmother had books. She wanted me to play the piano and things like that. And that was actually something that I like to do. But now with my dad and not having anything like that, even though it was like so much bad with very little good, that those small little precious moments of like positivity, or like not being attacked, or not dealing with every adjective, every word, everything that you can add, whatever, pertaining to mental health or anything. um, I held on to those, and now with people, stealing from me again, and my dad getting pissed off at me, saying, you're doing drugs, right? Because I didn't have actually drugs with me, but I had like marijuana seeds. That was pretty much it, and he found those in my dresser. But because people came in and they stole, my dad was definitely pissed off at me. And it got to a certain point where my dad was pushing my buttons, and I just knocked the shit out of him, and watched him fall on the couch. And I took off running out the door as fast as I could because I didn't know what happened. I didn't know if he was alive. I don't know whatever, but I just took my shot and I knocked the shit out of him, and I left, and I went and I jumped the fence, and basically I just didn't even come home up until like, I don't know, even way 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 late at night, or at some point in the night time, because I was like terrified of what was going to happen to me. Of course, I'm like 13, right? And so I'm pissed off that people stole from me. I'm pissed off, like I'm just at this point where, um, everything that I was doing before, and all of the bad things, it's just escalating, 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 escalating. And I'm getting to the point where I'm not willing to deal with these same things, or be pushed around anymore. And 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 because of those situations of fighting, I started becoming the bully, or I at least started treating people who treated me bad like as if, I was their worst nightmare for being a bully, that I was no longer going to take their shit anymore. And, that situation escalated, even to the point where one of the other people that I was associating with, they would do, chopped and screwed, rap music, Paul Wall, my, all of that. I was Swisher House. All of that was right when that was happening, when I was there, and I was of course around H Town in Houston, which is where I moved. So, um, like they would do audio recordings, chopped and screwed on cassettes, things like that, and I was like, man, that's awesome. They do flows and everything like that. And I was like, man, this is cool. I definitely am down with this. I like music and things like that, because that's what I had kind of grown around to be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Music, movie star, whatever. That is me. That would be like an awesome experience, right? To be someone that can do those things, because you have so much influence, as well as like, it's fun, right? It's creative. It's fun. So I don't know if it was after or before fighting with, punching my dad in his face. But one of the other kids that I hung out with, who was still around, who didn't move away. There was a few of them. One of them, we'd go over there and I'd smoke weed with him, or him and his dad. You know what I mean? It'd be something like that. But they would do chopped and screwed, and I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, man. I wanna hang out with you guys. You guys look, not only you guys seem cool, but you guys are open to accepting me. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I'm still with the bad crowds, or the bad seeds, right? And the situations, like one time we went to this party, And of course, I can't drive, but we got in this car, and we went to this house party. And there was, obviously some girls I was interested in. I wanted to do whatever I could to be around women, and unfortunately, of that, because of what had happened to me at an earlier age, um, I was doing things that kids shouldn't do. Making out with other kids, right? Or having these sick thoughts of like, what is this life, right? What is this, how things are supposed to do, or like go, right, in these situations. And that did not carry with me though as I got older. Like, I mean, I was still perverted. I would still, have sexual desires of lust and things like that. Whether it was like being, being step bro, right? Or being, someone who's just coming into a new area and like, hey, there's women around. I like women. I want to be around with you. Like, whatever it takes to hang out with you. And so when we went to this house party, it was obviously this girl's house, and I think her parents are out, but it was like a two-story house, and a bunch of people went, and I distinctly remember that at this party, because I had been there like maybe 2 or 3 times, right? But one time was for sure like a nighttime party. So we went there, and of course, most of these people were between, we'll say 16 to 18, maybe something like that. And I'm a couple years younger, but it wasn't my first encounter with people that were older, because even at, even growing up, I would try to be with the older crowds or the older people that are doing things, because I thought, well, that's what I should be doing as well instead of whatever's going on. But at this house party, we were all sitting there hanging out, and of course, some people are doing drugs outside or listening to music. But next thing people were pulling out weapons. Right? They got guns. It wasn't a Glock, but it was for sure a 9 millimeter or something like that. And basically, they I mean, they shot it in the house. So people were like, you know, freaking out, and I'm there, and I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, what am I gonna do, right? Because like I basically just got in a car with random people or whoever this, and we ended up going there. So when I was standing like up against the wall, and if I looked forward, they had this door that would go outside, and because they were on the inside next to this door, that's where that's when the gun went off. Now, nobody that I know of got injured, and nobody got shot. So to me, I think it was just an accident that someone just was stupid, and they let the gun go off because it shot down on the ground, from what I can recall. And so everyone's like, "Oh crap, we got to get out of here because the cops are going to come," and they did. But I was able to get outside, and I like got into I got into a car, and it was with someone who actually um, lived in a complex that was like across the street. It was this female, and I think maybe her brother, or I don't know, some people. But basically, I got in the car just to get out of like the entire neighborhood. Wherever I was, I could not stay there. Now, before, I do remember like going there and hanging out, and like they didn't have any food or anything, and like I'd be making like tuna fish, like a can of tuna, and then I'm like, man, I don't want to just eat like raw tuna, so I'd grill it up, put it on a pan, salt and pepper, whatever, what I mean. I was just doing stuff. I didn't even know honestly what I was doing. I was just doing stuff. And so that was obviously before this situation happened where someone let the gun go off, and I just took off. And I ended up getting back to their apartment, the apartment complex, and I went up and I'm just hanging out, and I was like, all right, well, I think I'm gonna go home, but as soon as I leave the complex, I have to go. It's like a 3-story complex, so if you live out in Texas, you understand what I'm talking about. It's pretty big complex. So I had to go down like 3 stairs, but then I'm walking out, and because I have to cross the street then to get to my one of the complexes to then get to into my complex, there's already 2 cop cars out there, and I'm like, oh crap, like I'm a kid. How am I gonna get across them? And I was like fearful of whatever was happening, the entire situation. So I like froze, and then eventually I just like walked back to the apartment and knocked on the door and was like, man, can I just stay here? Like, cops are out there. I don't know. I don't know if they're looking for me or, and the thing is, because of the time and where I was living, like, it's not beneficial for you to be, underage and being out late at night or to be doing any of this stuff. And, the circumstances around that was just like, I just want to stay here. So I was able to hang out with them, and I basically passed out on the floor. And then next thing you know, I wake up in the morning, and my dad actually knocked on this person's apartment, wondering where the hell I was, because the way that he found out was one of the guys, him and his father, whoever smoking weed or did the tapes, right? My dad went to that person's house and was wondering where he was because they were trying to figure out where I was. And, you know, luckily, I mean, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any way to communicate. I don't even know if I knew my dad's phone number personally. And I probably didn't even care enough to want to contact him because of his lack of interest in general. But, then I saw him knock on the door, and they open it up, and I'm getting up, and my dad's like, "Get up!" Like basically really pissed off at me, And then he tells me how he found me, by basically asking somebody else who was supposed to be, either with me or you know um, know where I was, right? And so, from that point though, I don't think my dad took really much anger out on me, because this was like either right before or just after, that we got into this physical altercation.